Well, we have a trillionaire now, so capitalism's going well. I don't know how any of this works. From my understanding, a lot of this is like inflated just because they're like combining the companies and everything. Like, technically speaking, on paper, Elon Musk is a trillionaire, but like if you actually dive into it, it's much muddier, the water. You know more about that than I do, though.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from his stake in SpaceX. My understanding is he owns 46% of total, like, SpaceX's total equity. So he owns 46% of like the total company, and they essentially sold 550 million shares, I think, of the company for $135 a piece. And everybody ate that up. So I mean, it threw his value at like $1.1 trillion. I think the four people below him, his value is now more than the four or five people below him combined. That's like Jeff Bezos and all them. It takes like four or five of them super rich people to equal his value,
So I don't
which is
like.
crazy.
Yeah, well, yes. I watched. Did you see Jimmy Kimmel's segment where he's like, he can buy every football team, every every NBA team, every baseball team, half the stadiums, all this, that, and the other, and he would still have like $300 billion left over.
Yeah, I seen something CNN pushed out. I didn't. Their math could be wrong. I don't know, but supposedly he can spend $1 million every hour for the next. He can spend $1 million every hour of every day for the next century, and still not technically, go broke.
Capitalism's doing well. We're in a
CNN's
good.
math, not mine. Maybe I read it wrong. I don't know. It could be fake news.
We're in a good place. I think.
We're in a good place.
I propose.
Give me 500,000. Change my life. Elon, 500,000.
Yeah, no shit. I propose we all, as like a country, he's not rich enough. I think we need to like donate more money to him. I think maybe we should all pitch in, like get a GoFundMe going. We can get like a plaque to give him that says like you won.
you haven't.
So this is where I don't understand it, because like from my understanding, like Twitter, for example, it's never been profitable. So how is it like because I know that's like counted as part of his like
Yeah,
wealth.
XAI and X combined, they merged. I think it was like a year and a half ago.
So that's where I'm thinking like
Maybe
that's where
then
my
XAI merged with SpaceX.
that's where I'm like my understanding is like some of these numbers are kind of inflated, and like because he's taking like his non-profitable companies and like rolling them into his profitable ones, so on paper it looks good, but if you
Well,
separated it.
SpaceX itself isn't profitable. I mean, it's still SpaceX is, you could still essentially say, as a startup. I think XAI is profitable. That's the AI data center part of the company now. I believe they're extremely profitable. Um, I think Google just signed a deal with them to pay them like $1.5 billion a month for like the next 24 months for computing space. So that's popping, that's going.
So the SpaceX, okay, that's not profitable. So how?
Well, yeah, just because
So let
Starlink is profitable. But SpaceX in itself and what Elon is trying to do, SpaceX has always been their means of development is launch a rocket, it blows up, we'll develop it, we'll figure it out. And they did that with the Falcon 9s. The Falcon 9s are now, let's be honest, probably the most probably the greatest rocket ever made in human history. I mean, I think they've had, this Falcon 9 launches more satellites into orbit than any other country in the world, and it's a private company. And the Falcon 9 is just, they perfected it. Design, it blew up. Redesign, it blew up. Eventually, they started, making it to space, landing the rocket. They're doing the same thing with the Starship now. And it's just a kind of a dirty means of development, but it works. It seems to work.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong here, and I could be wrong. Again, you know more about like this whole ecosystem than I do. SpaceX gets a shit ton of government grants. So they're getting a shit ton of tax dollars, and now Elon Musk becomes a trillionaire. So he's making money on both ends because he's getting the money from the government.
Yes,
and then he's selling share. It's inflating the value of his company, which he can then sell shares on, which he's not having to pay back to the government.
yes, but those government contracts aren't, by no means are the majority of the revenue for SpaceX. A lot of it has been private equity, Elon Musk leveraging their funds for development, right? I mean, they're getting contracts on the back end, but it's not sustaining SpaceX itself. A lot of that has just been Elon Musk's stake in the company because he owns 46% of the equity, right? A lot of that has been his money from Tesla, um, a.k.a. A lot of that's been his equity going into developing these rockets. And, contracts on the back end from the government, that's for launching military hardware. That's NASA contracts. They're a good share, but they're by no means the bulk of revenue coming in for SpaceX that's allowing them to develop.
Full disclosure, which you are completely aware of, there is not a single cell in my body that likes Elon Musk. I think he is
I
one
know.
of the worst human beings that has ever fucking existed.
I don't get that. I like, you know what? I think he hasn't helped
Okay,
himself in a lot of cases, but
here. Okay, first off, he is not as good of a businessman as everyone thinks he is. The
oh no,
man,
he's the world's first trillionaire. You
the
tell me how you measure success.
okay, fair, but let's be honest. His family is rich from like child slave labor in South Africa. Like it wasn't me becoming the world's first trillionaire. This guy had a bit of a leg up, and he's again he's got the government contracts. He's made some good deals. But he's also kind of an idiot. Example: Twitter. Every fucking buddy and their brother knew him buying Twitter was a bad deal. He thought it was such a great deal until he started looking at the actual numbers and he's like, wow, this is actually a terrible deal. And then he wanted to back out because he realized what everybody had told him from the start, it was a terrible deal. A judge tells him, no, sir, you've already signed everything. You have to buy this. So then he plays it up and walks into Twitter HQ with a fucking kitchen sink. Let that sink in. I'm so edgy. Ha, 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 ha. I'm a meme guy. And played it off. And everybody's like, oh my God, classic Elon. That's such great business. He's such a good. Meanwhile, 3 days beforehand, he was like scrambling to try to figure out how to get out of it because he realized, oh shit, my shit talking on Twitter has backfired. Example B of why I hate Elon Musk. The whole situation in Ukraine. This guy was on the outside. It looked like he was being nice, letting the Ukrainians use Starlink to help stay in the fight against Russia. This is, I think, 2022, early 2023. Then Ukraine wants to use the Starlink satellites to communicate with drones to attack Russia's Black Sea Fleet. He pulls the plug because he didn't want to be part of the large second Pearl Harbor or whatever, however he worded it.
Yeah,
come to find out, no, the Biden administration had secretly paid him to let the Ukrainians use this. So he took a bunch of U.S. taxpayer dollars to get this contract, the secret contract, which I don't even feel like we should be doing that, but that's a whole nother discussion. The secret contract to help the Ukrainians. And then when they're doing something he doesn't agree with, he's like, actually, I don't want you doing that. We're not doing this anymore. But I'm keeping the money. Fuck off. He's very petty. He has paid to have his name on things that he had nothing associated with. I think Tesla was one of them. He fought in court to have himself named as like one of the founders on it, even though he had nothing to do with it until it was already established. Granted, he did take that off, and he is the largest electric automaker in the country. I mean, that's, fair. But again, actually a great example of him shooting himself in the foot and being an idiot. This guy goes, typical US businessman, hey, I want to make money. Where do I make money at? I go to China. China makes things cheap. I can sell them for a high profit. Sure, maybe little 5-year-olds are involved in the process, but, we did that in South Africa with the Emerald Mine, so it is what it is. So he goes to China.
Counter argument to two of those.
I had like 6 more lined up. So
hold on, let me walk with you on this. Right, the Pearl Harbor incident, hypothetical Pearl Harbor incident. Very true. Yes, he did have a contract with them, but you got to think of it through a different perspective. Who is assuming all the risk in that scenario?
The guy that signed the contract. Just like he signed the contract for Twitter and assumed the risk.
But then we know Elon Musk is in full control of SpaceX. He owns 50% of it. At that point, the Russians could say, hypothetically, okay, your assets are now in play. And the Russians are very good at electronic warfare, cyber warfare. Would the Biden administration have stepped in to protect his assets if hypothetically the Russians went after SpaceX?
Shouldn't the guy who claims to be the smartest human to ever exist have thought about that before he put pen to paper?
Just play the scenario out there.
I would have considered that. You're considering it. You're not the world's self-proclaimed smartest guy. I mean, but, so you think he would have thought of this?
Tesla. Right, I'm not a Elon Musk show, but I will defend him in certain scenarios, and I'll look at everything.
I will fight him on the beaches. I will fight him in the trenches.
Yes, he wasn't. He did fight in court to become have himself named as a founder. Yes, he ended up buying Tesla. Yes, and however, pen to paper, he's the one who hired the engineers that made electric cars mainstream.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I say.
The whole entire world is especially China, Europe, they're transitioning to electric cars. Yes, it had been done in the 90s, early 2000s by GM and Ford, but they were pretty much like giving up at that point. They were like, this isn't feasible, They started selling off those assets.
I will fully give him
all
credit
that together.
That. I will fully.
And you could say the electric car market today is, in some part, majority influenced by his early decisions in in Tesla, and making it mainstream and developing the tools and means necessary to create those kinds of.
I will give him full credit for that. Now, here is where I will, push back on that. The global influence of the EVs. Now, yes, he did play a part in that, but this is where he's also, I will say, he's an idiot. He goes to China. It's like, hey, I want to start building EVs here. I want to expand my market to China. China's like, that sounds amazing. You're just going to have to do one little thing. Teach us how to make EVs. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, that's a great idea. I can do that. And then as soon as he did, they were like, hey, get out of China now. You're no longer allowed to sell in China. And then
he's sold off that technology, that IP, and now BYD's the world's largest electric car maker. I was about to say, he sold them that technology.
He is the biggest EV maker in the United States, but he basically single-handedly helped China beat him globally because his typical American businessman, I'm going to move everything to China to try to save money. That's another reason I don't understand all these people that are like, oh, he's looking out for the American worker. He'd be great working in the Trump administration, all this, that, and the other. He actively tried to take if he's only in Texas because China kicked him out. Like China, if he could have done what Apple did with the iPhone and moved everything to China and paid his workers 30 cents a day and a bowl of rice, he absolutely would have. He was in the process of trying that. He does not give a shit about the American workers.
That's a good topic for the future. American business people selling out the U.S. for cheap labor in China, because we could go on about Apple, and I think they spent over $700 billion developing the Chinese electronic market, training their engineers, training their workforce.
Hmm.
Those are, Apple is probably one of the sole reasons why China is where it is in just everything with electronics, electronic manufacturing, research, development. Literally, Apple, an American company, developed their capabilities to surpass us. But future conversation. That's a good
Well,
conversation.
just it wasn't just Apple. I mean, American businesses in
Oh,
general.
oh no,
You
Apple had
know,
a huge,
well, no.
huge hand in that.
Absolutely, but I mean, like that was standard practice. Hey, we're going to
Yeah.
move manufacturing from America because why pay American workers? I could be the first
Mhm.
trillionaire if I maybe go pay some Chinese children to do the job that I'm paying a grown man in America $30 an hour to do. You know,
Yeah.
is so I have numerous problems with Elon. One of my another one that was on my list. I forget half my list now because we've kind of gone off on a tangent. But another big one. Do you remember that time? I believe it was like the UN aid agency was like, "Hey, for Elon Musk could single handedly end
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I got
global
a good
hunger."
counter.
He was can single handedly end global hunger, and he's like, "Oh, if you can produce an itemized list, I will absolutely do it." They came out like 2 months later with a $6 billion itemized list. We would say, take this money, spend it here, send it there. We would do this, that, and the other, and then he acted like he'd never seen them before in his life.
Well, hold on. He did. I do believe he did donate $6 billion to something. I don't know if it was the UN or some kind of research project that he donated that money to. Why hasn't world hunger ended yet? I believe he did. Damn,
I don't. I was gonna say I don't. I can't refute this point because he may have, and I'm not aware of it. But if he didn't, I win.
oh, well, never mind. He donated 5.7 billion worth of Tesla shares to the Musk Foundation shortly after. That
Oh boy, the Musk Foundation.
was not specifically earmarked for the.
I'm sure that money went to good places.
Well, wherever that money went.
Yeah, it's gonna help.
You got me there.
It's gonna help build that new Albanian resort that the Trumps are now trying to build.
Yeah.
Because that's what the billionaire class needs, another island. Nothing
Yeah.
ever went wrong with billionaires on an island that was exclusive to them.
Yeah. Nothing.
Let's take it. Let's just take this little operation to Albania, which is definitely not corrupt and not known for not having good oversight and everything.
So, kind of keep this back towards, I guess trillionaires and late stage capitalism.
I think we're in end stage at this point. I think we're past late stage.
Well, this was just the beginning. SpaceX was the beginning. There's a lot of mega IPOs that are coming this year. You have Chat OpenAI with ChatGPT. You have I think it's Anthropic with Claude or something like that.
Yeah.
All these big AI companies, they're all planning mega IPOs this year. A lot of these AI, we've seen almost, I think it was like $700 billion invested in AI infrastructure this past year, late last year into this year, and a lot of them are going to start going IPO this year, early next year. They're looking for returns. They're looking for profitability.
I don't think it's there. I think they're just all passing debt around, though.
We're going to find out, because this year is going to be the year of mega IPOs. We're talking, I think I've seen somebody on Bloomberg was talking about, so SpaceX, with the sale of all these shares, they were able to, like, I don't know if the end number's out yet, but they were going to, after all said and done, they were going to have like 75 billion off of just the sales. So that's money SpaceX had after selling all those shares to themselves, 75 billion. I think after all these sales, these mega IPOs, they were talking like it's going to be crazy. It's like $300 billion in profits for all these big companies. So they're going to make some money back. It's just where's the profitability? It's not enough to cover. It's not a return on investment right away. It's not covering sunk costs or anything like that. So where's the profitability after that? Is it business to business? Is it business to consumer?
I
Is
think
it
it's.
even there?
I don't even think it's there. I think like it's business to business in the sense that they're all just passing the debt around. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'll buy 300 billion of your stock, but then you've got to go buy 300 billion of that guy's stock, and then he's got to go buy 300 billion of my stock,
Well,
and nobody's actually seeing the money. It's just passing this monopoly money
here
around.
here is where it could hypothetically be covered. And you've seen Bernie Sanders propose that the U.S. government should buy 50% stake in all AI companies. And I think the Trump administration was actually floating that idea without that bill. So it seems like politicians on both sides are like, yeah, we should do this one way or in one form or another.
Well, I think part of that's because they also see
The,
that this AI bubble, if it collapses, it's going to be potentially worse than 2008.
oh
So
yeah,
if we
but
back it
you're
all with the
seeing
U.S. government,
politicians on both sides saying, well, maybe we should take a cut of this. Maybe we should cover, in some sense,
well, that's because
some of those costs.
well that's what I'm saying is like
Which
if
what they're seeing future returns as well, right? Bernie Sanders is saying a trust fund. I think the Trump
well
administration was
if
talking
there's
about trust
future
fund.
if there's
If there's
future returns,
future,
I think it's more like hey, the U.S. economy as a whole, with the backing of the U.S. like the backing of the U.S. government, it can take that blow without causing a recession versus if these AI companies did. It's almost like how we did the bank
yeah. But you
bailout
just
in 2008. This is almost
mm,
like preempting that. Like, hey, we're just going to back you now. That way, if it does burst, the money's already there because
yeah,
we're already tied to it.
it yeah, because that won't devalue the dollar any worse than what it is and
Yeah.
drive up the cost of goods and you know.
So that's
But
where oh, go on.
I've seen something on the New York Times. They had an article about it, calling it the harbinger of a potential bubble, right? Like a dot-com bubble or a
Mhm.
2008 financial crisis, is there isn't enough money in the system from consumers or other businesses to cover those costs and to generate profitability, especially because you have a lot of companies now saying that maybe I think Facebook came out and Zuckerberg was saying, mistakes were made because they fired tens of thousands of people thinking they could shift all those jobs to AI, and come to find out it wasn't yet realized.
That's another thing.
And it's like maybe there's not enough money. Maybe AI isn't there yet to start generating profitability.
Yes, there's that. But also, this is something interesting I found. If I sit there and say I want to cut American jobs to give them to low skilled foreigners, well, no, 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 we can't do that. That's bad. That's bad. If I say we want to cut American jobs because I want to make more profit, lay off a bunch of people, we'll let it happen if a big company does it, but we also collectively agree, well, that's bad. We shouldn't do it. There's if I say, hey, I want to get rid of American jobs and send them overseas, hey, that's bad. We can't do it. If I say I want to cut American jobs and send them to AI, well, suddenly that's the greatest idea we've ever fucking had, and we're
Mm.
all throwing our collective weight behind it. The government's all for it. The politicians are all for it. The business owners are all for it. They're like, this is fantastic. Yes, I should lay off 50% of my workforce and have Claude replace them.
Mm. Well, I think the jobs that are going to be lost right away are a lot of like call centers and help desks and lower skilled IT people that you would see, outsourced to like India, China, Vietnam. I think those are going to be the jobs you see lost first,
Yeah,
and it's
first,
going
yeah.
to it's going to disrupt. I wouldn't say necessarily the American economy. It's going to disrupt the Indian economy. It's going to disrupt the China, well, maybe not necessarily the Chinese economy, because the Chinese are playing the smart game. But the Vietnamese, all these call centers, lower IT people, those are going to be the jobs you see, and it's going to disrupt some smaller economies out there. And
Well, it'll hit us eventually. Because here's the thing: I've said this
Yeah.
for years. I've said with the rise of automation, socialism is an inevitability. Because as you start laying people off, you start laying off
Mhm.
all the engineers, you start laying off all the software designers, you start adding robots. I know that's one thing that some of these companies are talking about
Yeah.
is
We're
the
nowhere
next
near
thing.
engineering.
No, but I mean like software engineers. Um,
Yeah.
but once you start, some of these companies have already started talking about the next big thing after AI is going to be automated workforces, robots and things like that. Once you start adding that in, and you lose, you've got 25% of the workforce without a job, because all these things happen. You start those numbers start going high. You're gonna have to find ways to take care of those people. Like
Oh yeah.
and at the moment, the American economy can't do that. So here's the thing. This is why I said earlier, I was like, we're in end stage capitalism. We're talking about the world's first trillionaire.
Mm.
Meanwhile, a report just came out that said, hey, heads up, by 2032, we're going to have to cut Social Security by up to 20%. An average of $500 per Social Security person on Social Security. Um, Mike Johnson is talking about, hey, we're going to have to figure out something about these entitlement programs because we can't afford them. You know, so we have all these IPOs that are trying to race to the top. We have Elon Musk currently popping champagne for being the first trillionaire. We have all these homeless people. We have all these, look at the people in California that are homeless that have jobs but can't afford a house. You have companies like you had mentioned all these AI companies earlier. They are actively committing lawfare against small communities across the country that if you don't let them build a data center in their town, they're just going to take you to court and bankrupt you. Um, that's where I say we're in like end stage capitalism because this system is completely broken at this point. We are
Yeah.
in the final throes because either one of two things has to happen. Either the automation needs to take over now so that you can start finding ways to make this profitable and help people, or people are going to start realizing, hey, I don't have a house and I work two jobs and I'm living in a tent in California, but Elon Musk has $1 trillion. Maybe I need to start resorting to violence.
Well, yeah. I mean, the wealth hasn't been, especially in America, the wealth hasn't been distributed because how we would traditionally think, because the baby boomers are invested. They've been invested in the stock market. Who's realizing these gains from these IPOs and high stock values? Baby boomers, maybe some Gen X, I believe, but the people who have had the best stock market in all of history have been the baby boomers. They're realizing those gains. That's why a lot of them, not a lot of them, but a vast majority of them have multiple income streams, multiple houses. That's from like stocks, dividends, multiple houses. The millennials and Gen Z, we're kind of caught holding the bag. Like, well, where the fuck is ours?
Well, and that's where like those
Yeah.
entitlement programs, like for example, they're not going to be there for us at this rate because a lot of those require a future workforce to
Mm.
put into,
Yeah.
and millennials aren't having kids.
And let me hot take here. Fuck you, baby boomers. You had the
I
best
don't know if
stock
that's a hot
market.
take.
You had the best stock market in all of history. You had the best job market in all of history. You fucked it up because for the past 30 fucking years, they've been electing these dumb motherfuckers who have drove us into $36 trillion in debt.
Well,
You
and
know,
and on top of that, it's those
that was their
politicians.
decisions. George Bush's, George Bush really kind of started off. Uh, Obama, first Trump administration, they can't say, oh, we need to protect my benefits, my benefits. You're the one who voted for the people who cut your fucking benefits, who quit putting money into the system, who drove up debt.
Well, it's not just that. Like I want to add on to like. Here's the thing: they voted for all these politicians who come from that Reganomics era, who because
Yeah.
this all started with Reagan. Because
Yes.
then
Yeah.
Reagan changed everything. Well, we're going to be better to business, and then they're going to trickle it down to the poor person. That has not happened in 50
No.
years.
Wealth
That
disparity is
and
the
and
highest it's ever been.
and here's the thing: like for all these people, predominantly like older Republicans who are like, well, we can't do anything about that. We can't add taxes. They'll cut jobs, this, that, and the other. First off, we had those taxes when they had, in the 60s and 70s, the golden age of
Yes.
capitalism. But second, in the early 1900s, the government acted when like this shit would never have happened back then, because when you had the Elon Musks of that time, the Rockefellers and
Hmm.
things like that, where they were consolidating and monopolizing and having these massive trusts and things like that, the government said, "Hey, that's fucking over the workers. That's fucking over the taxes. That's screwing over everything. No more of that. We're going to put rules on that." Like,
Yeah.
we're not a free and open market like everyone thinks we are. We have guide rails for a reason. And governments in the US in the past have acted on those. That's why I said, Elon would not have ever hit $1 trillion in any other point in American history, or like comparably $1 trillion, because they would have prevented that from happening. Meanwhile, our government doesn't know what their fucking email is. They're too focused on partisan politics and keeping people divided. And hey, we're going to say one thing but do another. Hey, let's add more to the debt. And let's, not do our job and pass a spending bill. So we're just going to pass stopgap spending for 10 years straight, basically.
Hmm.
That's
Well,
that's the problem. That's why we're in
yeah,
this
the
mess.
government hasn't done its job. Look at this Paramount deal to buy Warner Bros. I think it's Warner Brothers. I think that government just cleared it and was going to allow it. So it was like a merger of like two of the five largest media companies in the United States, and I'm curious to see what comes out about that, if they even try to stop it or if they let it go, because it's like, okay, does the consumer benefit from that? There's now subscription costs for everything. I think to watch just
To watch like every
reaching out
NFL game, you had to
NFL
have
game.
like $2,000 worth of uh, subscriptions and
Yeah.
fees last year.
Where was the benefit for the consumer? Was the American consumer being protected on that? No, I don't think so. So here we are yet again allowing a you know, mega corporation to buy another mega corporation. Do we honestly believe that's going to protect the American consumer? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because
We,
I've
we haven't.
I've heard from all these older, and again, I'm going to shoot at Republicans here. All these older Republicans, for years, competition drives innovation. Competition
Yeah,
is what fuels capitalism. When they're all buying each other, or
there's no competition.
yeah, there's no competition, or look at even when there is quote unquote competition. Look at I remember I watched John Oliver episode a couple of years ago about the internet companies, Comcast and now Spectrum, then Time Warner. They will basically stay out of each other's way so they don't have to compete. They'll be like, okay, I'll take Philadelphia, you get New York. I get Chicago, you can have Cleveland.
Hmm.
They carve it up and then they just don't compete with each other. So they're basically monopolies in those areas at that point, and the government's just looking the other way, going, "Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. You do what you need to do. I'm going to go help out. I assume Israel. They got bigger
Well,
fish to fry."
you see it with Amazon and Walmart, for example. Now they have, like, Walmart has the great value brands. Amazon has the Amazon Basics. Those companies are actively competing and beating on price the traditional brands sold within their markets,
Mhm.
sold within their network, and they can get the same stuff, label it something different, cut the price. Is that fair competition?
Or here's another thing that I've found out about a year ago. So
Thank God
Amazon,
it's cheaper. Great value is a lot cheaper.
for
For
now,
prison here.
yeah, for now.
For
Well,
now.
so this is one thing too. Like in that actually, that's a good point in that same vein. So I was watching somebody on TikTok. They were talking about, this was like a year or so ago. They were discussing Amazon sells a lot of books. Amazon sells books fairly cheap. Cheaper. It's cheaper to, if you want a book, to buy it off Amazon than to go to Barnes and Noble or whatever your local bookstore is and buy it.
Yeah.
The reason that is because Amazon is taking a loss on books, and apparently they did this with baby products and put some company out of business. They will take a loss, wait till that company, because they can afford to subsidize it with their other products, and then when that company goes out of business, they jack their prices back up because now they have a monopoly. So
Yeah, and it's
for
higher
book,
than it ever was before. Yep.
yes. Now this is where I've actually kind of been toying with a solution to this. still work in progress. I'm no politician, so I this is where I think the government needs to force competition, right? So let's say you want to do a startup tomorrow that's like Amazon or like Walmart. They're going to either immediately buy you out as soon as you become a blip on their radar, or if you refuse the buyout, they're going to take you to court for some unknown law from 1783 that you didn't even know existed, and they're going to hold you up in court and bankrupt you and use lawfare. I think this is where the government needs to step in and almost subsidize the smaller company in a situation like that. So, hey, we're going to use the government to put you on a level playing field almost. We'll help you expand your business. We will help you until you become so profitable or have so many employees or whatever. Like, obviously, there's government grants and stuff now, but ask any small business owner, it's not enough. It doesn't do anything, especially if you're competing with a large corporation. If you have the full might of the government credit card behind you, basically, at that point, obviously, there would have to be stipulations, but you can really put these smaller companies on par with some of these bigger companies. Think about how many times somebody has developed something that would put a company maybe not out of business, but would hurt their bottom line. Think of better engines, more fuel efficient engines, or something of that nature. And then next thing you know, ExxonMobil and Ford and whoever else are involved in a lawsuit against them and put them out of
Or
business.
buy them up.
Or buy them up, and then they put that thing on a shelf in a vault somewhere. But then you never hear about it again. This would allow you to be able to go, no, you're not buying me out. I'm doing pretty good. And, oh, you're going to sue me? Okay, well, cool. The government's going to cover the court costs on that, and then we'll see you in court. And then that way, you're not putting these people out of business. You're not buying them out. And then you're forcing innovation. Because right now, there's no innovation. It's all just replication. I mean, like, I saw something recently that Uber is experimenting with multi-share rides or something like that. They've reinvented the bus. They have added a subscription-based bus where you can get on a ride, and if other people are on that route, they can be picked up too, and then it'll lower your cost. It's called bus fare. We've had it for decades. It's called a cab. Like, you're not innovating shit. You're just replicating and finding new ways to add fees to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, well, you look at like New York City and these big cities where Uber and Lyft have pretty much destroyed the traditional, cab companies that we would know, that we've seen in the 90s, early 2000s. The competition isn't there anymore.
Well,
those companies are now looking for profitability, right? They've disrupted the marketplace. Now they're looking for profitability. They're going to start, looking for means to escalate charges, subscription fees, and it doesn't help the consumer. It helps the consumer for a few short years.
Yeah, we put out all of our competition out of business. Now we can charge whatever the hell we want. Yeah, that's called a monopoly. We dealt with that 100 years ago. We figured that problem out. We had the solution. I don't know why we're still having this problem. As far as the cabs too, I don't know if you knew this. One of the big problems with the cab companies, this was an issue 5-6 years ago, I remember hearing about. You need, in a lot of cities, you need to have certain qualifications to be a cab driver. I can't just go and be a cab driver. You got to go to classes. You got to have qualifications and shit so that, they're not just letting any crazy person
I think
be.
New York City required like a badge that cost $1 million.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Meanwhile, you don't need any of that for Uber or Lyft. So a lot of these cab drivers just switched to that, and a lot of these cab companies started going out of business because, hey, I don't have drivers. Everybody's using this stuff because they're undercutting me anyway. It's cheaper. And now the cab companies are out of business. Now look what's happening. Uber and Lyft are basically the only two left. They're barely competing because, nobody likes either of them really. But, they can still
destroy jobs in the process.
But even
because
actually,
the cab drivers. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, even like Lyft and Uber, for example, they may be technically on paper in competition, but when Uber goes and says, hey, I'm going to actually charge an extra $1 a mile for your ride, Lyft just turns around and does the same thing. So they're basically working together to just raise the prices instead of because why not? People still got to use me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what if I charge just 5 cents less? No one's going to really notice, but even the people that do are going to stay with me because actually, hey, my company is a little cheaper. So now these companies aren't really racing to the bottom like we were promised. It's, hey, I'm going to raise my prices and then you're going to immediately raise your prices too.
Well, that and like Uber was testing like variable pricing, and it could determine how much you could actually pay
Mm-hmm.
per route, like or per destination. So you and I might get a different fare from leaving from same point A to same point B, or,
They're
point A
not
to point B, just based on our income and what they knew about us.
they're not the only ones I saw recently. I think it was the PlayStation store. They were potentially looking at doing a similar thing where they would basically have like an internal credit thing on their PlayStation accounts where, hey, let's say you buy a lot of stuff from me. Well, I'm going to charge you more, but I don't buy a lot of stuff. So they're going to give me discounts to incentivize me to start buying. And then they'll slowly raise my prices over time. Then
Yeah.
you've got things like surge pricing that we're now starting to experiment with. Walmart's moving towards. They're moving away from traditional paper um, price tags and moving to electronic ones on all their stuff so that depending on what time of day you go, they can just raise or lower their prices.
Yeah.
None of this is good for the
This milk
consumer.
was $5 a gallon when I started, or when I put it in my cart. Why is it 6.50 when I'm checking out?
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean that's a
Oh,
real thing that's
fuck.
going to happen. That's a real thing that's going to happen in the future. Is people are going to sit there and like, what do you mean my bill comes out to $423 for my 2 weeks of groceries or whatever? I did all the math as I put it in the cart. Oh, sorry. Well, when you picked that up, it was this price, but our price, surge charging, hit before you got up here to the register.
Mm.
That's going to be a thing. We have incentivized these companies to just run roughshod over the populace.
There's there's no there's no backstop to it. There's no regulation of it. The government is too busy infighting partisan politics. Nobody's there to protect the consumer, protect the people. It's
Well,
let me indoctrinate, let me propagate, let me.
this is a problem I have too. Okay, and this I know I've taken a lot of shot at Republicans so far, but I'm going to take another one. Any, I don't know if Bernie Sanders' tax plans or AOC's tax plans or whatever will work. If maybe raising prices or raising taxes on these billionaires, maybe they will leave. I don't fucking know. But what we've been doing for 50 years clearly hasn't been working. So every time somebody sits there and goes, "Hey, we need to raise taxes on all these billionaires and now trillionaire and all these big corporations and stuff," you have half the country that just goes, "No, no, no, that'll destroy jobs. That will affect everybody even worse." And it's like, okay, well, what's your plan? Because the status quo isn't working, and I haven't heard a good plan from the Republicans other than, well, we're just going to cut taxes on the rich even more because that's worked so fucking well.
I don't, as my Republican perspective, it's different than most. I still think at the end of the day, everybody has to pay more taxes. Obviously, the rich should pay even more than what they're paying right now. I get it. They pay what, 50%, 60% of the taxes. They can afford to pay more. If we're getting to the point where they're, we have people with values in the hundreds of billions and now trillions of dollars, they can afford to pay more. Sorry, guys, it's on you. But even the people, maybe lower down on our, I don't know, it gets a
See,
little
see
sketchy down
that
where we are.
I was saying
Because it's like,
that's the interesting part because even as a leftist, I'm like, yes, raise taxes on them, but I think like any household making under like $250,000 a year probably shouldn't have to pay taxes. It, first off,
here's the thing,
because that
$36 trillion in debt. It has to be paid off.
oh no, I agree, but if
We got to cut spending and raise taxes. It's the only way that we get out of this hole we've
absolutely,
been
I
put
think
in.
we need to cut spending like a motherfucker, and I
We
think
just can't
raise.
say, "Oh, well, we're gonna just tax people
Here's
more,"
the
but at the
thing.
same time, here's a new thing we want to throw that money at. Here's a new thing we have to fucking balance our budget.
Here's the thing. This is where I'm at on it. Lower taxes on, like I said, 100,000, 200,000, 250,000. I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm sure somebody could come up with a good number. But there is a number in here where I think you shouldn't have to pay taxes. Because here's the thing. The more money you save, the more you're going to spend. If I give you $100, you're going to put it back right back into the economy. I can tax the sales on it. It's going to go to a wage somewhere. They're going to spend that. It's going to get recycled very quickly.
I
If
would
you
agree
give
with
Elon Musk $100, that's going to go into some fucking pedo island somewhere you can't point to, probably near Albania. And no one's going to see it again for 80 years because these guys are dragons sitting on their hoards of gold. The thing is that we need to cut spending, absolutely, because that's my hot leftist take. I don't think at the moment we can afford like Medicare for all or things like that. Like I think again with you, we need to balance the budget, but I think raise taxes like a motherfucker on these billionaires, raise taxes on these companies. Amazon, I proportionately pay more than Amazon does. I proportionately pay more than Elon Musk does. That's a problem right there. They can afford to pay more. It's going to help the economy. I'm supposed to pay more, even though I can barely afford to keep my lights on some months, or Joe Blow or whoever. But Elon Musk can't afford to pay more. And here's the argument they have. Well, they'll take it somewhere else. Okay. Where are they going to take it? Because they're not going to move to fucking Angola because it's a third world country. And they're not going to go to Europe because they're going to get taxed even more. So where on the planet are they going to go? So tax them just slightly less than the Europeans and let's pay our fucking debts down. Because we are starting to hit the point, I believe we just hit it this year, where the debt, the interest on the debt is like the highest payment the government has now.
Yeah, that's a bad point. And especially when you're not paying it down. If it's equivalent to military or defense spending and the total cost of the government and it's not going down, that's just interest, there's a problem.
You want to talk about
huge,
a national
huge problem.
You want to talk about a national security threat? How about the fact that one of the biggest payments in our budget yearly is interest?
Interest.
Not even the debt. First off, interest, you don't see any benefit to interest. So when I borrow $100 from you, I can see the value of that $100. But when I have to pay you $150 back, that extra $50, there's no value to it. That's just going to you. So that is what a billion or however much, I forget the exact number it is now, $1 trillion I think is on the interest payments or something. That's $1 trillion you could be spending on infrastructure. You could be spending on healthcare, on childcare, on secondary education.
$1 trillion in spending cuts.
That could be $1 trillion in defense.
Tax cuts. My bad. No, I would agree with Jeff Bezos. I would consider Jeff Bezos' recent comments that anybody making under 75,000 a year shouldn't be paying taxes. I would agree with that just because there's $6,400 you pay, maybe I pay in federal income tax. That money could go to something. It could go to, maybe you could afford a new car. Maybe you could afford that addition after. Yeah, maybe you could. I've been on vacation in 10 years. It's been 10 years since I've taken a vacation.
Yeah, I've never been on vacation.
Maybe that's $6,400 that year that I could say, all right, hey, dear, you want to, pack up the little guy and let's go to California. Let's go travel across the country or something. Maybe not California.
Again, that money is going to be spent. You're going to put it back into the economy.
It's going to generate GDP.
It's going to go somewhere. You're going to see a benefit from it versus, hey, we're actually going to raise taxes on the middle and lower class and then cut them on the top earners who are just going to, again, do nothing with them. They're not helping the economy in any way.
Elon Musk accumulate wealth.
Elon Musk being a trillionaire right now is not helping the everyday person at all. And I know like there's some people that are like, well, he made millionaires from the people that bought into SpaceX and Tesla and this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, yes. Do you know any of them? Because I don't.
I don't.
The people who bought that shit were probably either A, already millionaires, or B, damn close. Like, they were already people who could afford to do that shit.
Oh, I think a lot of it was people who worked for the company who
that
were
shit
given,
too.
like, stock. Yeah.
And again, a lot of those people are already making a lot of money comparatively. But my point is more that like having a bottom-up economy is going to help a lot more than what we've clearly been failing at. Hey, we had this in the early 1900s to like the 1980s, and it seemed to work pretty well. We won 2 world wars off of it. We
Yeah.
basically bankrolled the Allies in World War II. We were the only economy that really left standing after World War II. And it worked out great. The 50s and 60s and early 70s and things like that were called the golden age of capitalism. You know, we had manufacturing out the ass. We had startups and small businesses out the ass. And in the 80s, some guy came along and was like, hey, I'm not rich enough and my buddies aren't rich enough. Let's try it this way. And we gave it a good old college effort. We really did. For like a lot of people's lifetime, we did this. For my entire lifetime, we've done it. And it clearly isn't working. It has clearly not fixed anything. Our roads are not better. Our healthcare is not better. You know, we have some of the lowest standard of living in the world. But hey, we've got the world's first trillionaire, America.
America. I would agree. I would say, yeah, your argument, yes. Things aren't equivalent to what they were back then. I mean, I'd still rather live in this country than any other country in the world because the rest of them suck.
Absolutely.
But
doesn't mean I can't criticize it.
The biggest thing is the value, your dollar doesn't go as far as it did 10 years ago. We can clearly see that today. You know, look at an F-150. I think 10 years ago, an F-150, my thought process was maybe 2010, a brand new F-50 cost $37,000 with all the bells and whistles on it. That same truck is now 75.
All the bells and whistles, you're way more than that. My house I bought for 89 or 83,000. Let me look up the price of a brand new 2027 F-150. 2027 F-150 price. Low estimates start at 43,000. EVs start at 55,000. So we're talking.
No, thank you.
Over the Raptor is 80,000 and above. The 2027 Raptor is $3,000 less than my house. That should tell you the state of the economy.
Little something I just ran into an issue. My wife and I are looking at houses, just looking at the market. In my area, there's this house that I've seen up for sale once before. It's up for sale right now. We went on Zillow. We looked into the old selling price. It has sold twice in the past 6 years. It is now selling for $100,000 more than it did 6 years ago. It's the same fucking house.
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing special has been done to it. Maybe a new coat of paint. $100,000 in 6 years? Fuck no.
My house is a fantastic example. I bought it for $83,900. I have within the past year purchased an adjacent acre of land to put on it. And so I have now 2 acres roughly. Without that, I think Zillow estimated my house at like $160,000. My house is probably upwards of $200,000 now. Like, that's unattainable. That's great for me. I mean, but I'm not going to sell it. But at the same time, it's like that's unattainable for a lot of people. Why do you think, like in California, you got all these fucking people who are homeless but have 2 and 3 jobs?
Yeah, if you were to hypothetically buy your own house again over today,
I would be broke. I would be paying way more than I could afford. There would be no
you
way.
make more money now than when you did when you first bought that house, but the value is just disproportionate. And it would be hypothetically unattainable. You wouldn't want to pay that mortgage payment.
Oh, absolutely not. I would move back in with my parents.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, that's the thing is that's where I'm saying we are in like end stage capitalism at this point. Things are, because realistically things aren't going to get better. You know, they can't. You can't bring down these prices that substantial. Because here's the thing:
there has to be a crash.
Well, yes. There's going to have to be like a recession or something for something like that. Because look at me, for example. You know, I'm not selling my house, but let's say I was, one of these old boomers, 60, 70, 80 years old or whatever. They have these houses. They don't want to sell them right now because they don't want to move. They don't want to pay for a new house because look how much it costs. So they're just holding on to this stuff. But even once they get rid of it or they die or they do decide to sell it, people can't afford to get them anyway.
No,
So
no.
so so you're just sitting in a situation where it's like something's got to give.
So,
They said I think last month was one of the worst years for sellers in recent. I think they said since COVID because people weren't buying houses. Sellers were pulling them off the market because they couldn't get the price they wanted for them, and they couldn't sell them because no one was buying them
oh yeah,
because
just
no
to
one
give
could
you an
afford them.
example, I don't want to give away where we kind of live close to. There's a large lake near me.
Mm-hmm. I think
There's a
yes.
small
But
house.
continue.
There's a small house that just went up for sale. Shit you not, it has access to a dock. That's great. There's some value in that you could put into a dollar value. This looks like one of those tiny little prefab houses that you see, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, or maybe on like a small city. They have these little tiny houses that you
Like the
could buy and
modular
put on
homes.
your, yeah, but they're just these little almost decent size. I would say looking like a shed, like a
Okay.
shed on steroids. In the description, master carpenter, built this, da 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 da.
It was some guy named Eduardo.
Eduardo. My wife and I looked at it. We're like, oh, that's probably like 140,000. Kind of small. We could do that. 140. I'd pay 140K for it. We looked at the price, $340,000. It had a quarter of an acre, had access to a dock. It didn't have property on the lake, but access to a dock on the lake. 340,000. There's no fucking way. There's no,
I,
no.
I don't know. I don't know how we got on houses, but like
Yeah, sorry.
the main point of this is like something's got to give at some point. We got to try something new. We've got to get actual like the problem we're sitting in now is all these old politicians are dying off, quite literally, and the people that are going to replace them are either more of the same because they've grown up brainwashed in this, or they're on the complete opposite end where it's like we need to like nationalize these companies and forcibly take their wealth and shit. The answer is somewhere in between. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not. I'm more just complaining right now. I don't have a solution, but we got to try something because this is not
Yeah.
sustainable. And
And
the fact that we're talking about cutting seniors off Medicare, but Elon Musk is like popping champagne right now because of how rich he is. It's I don't know. Something's
yeah.
broken somewhere.
So there's a quote here from Michael Peterson, the CEO of a debt-focused think tank. His quote is, "It's important to recognize that the Senate we are electing this year will be in office when Social Security becomes unpayable, unable to pay out full benefits. The people we are bound to elect this year are going to be responsible for that one way or another. Whether they cut it, whether they fund it in different means, this is the year that's make and break." So,
Maybe pay attention to your
critical,
local elections
critical. Well,
because that's the thing I've noticed is
who's
we're
going to
very
continue the partisan bullshit and continue to do nothing? Because something has to happen. One way or another, something has to happen this year.
unfortunately all of them are going to continue the partisan bullshit.
Yeah, whether it's Democrat or Republican, I don't
Yes.
trust any of them. I don't
Yes.
think anyone's going
Even
to
though
get it right.
even the ones I like I hate Democrats, but even there's a few Democrats I do or people who have ran as like progressive Democrats and stuff. Even them, it's like they don't even have answers, or their answers are just bad. It's like, oh, we're gonna tax Elon Musk at 100%. It's like, okay, well that's not feasible, really. Like
Yeah, but $1 trillion
that's not.
is only going to fund Social Security for what, 8 months,
Yeah,
6 months?
it's like even their solutions are like, okay, those are populist solutions that are probably short term good, long term have their own cons. It's like
Yeah,
that that's the problem. And then to your point about like the Senate elections, that's one thing. Like, we are very reactive as a society. I've been seeing this a lot with like I've been paying a lot of attention to like these data centers being popping up everywhere, and like a lot of these communities are finding out like after the ground, all the permits are approved and the ground's already been broken and stuff, and then they're, you know, protesting, or they're at their city council meetings or whatever. And we you got to get ahead of this stuff. You got to be active now, because by the
Yeah.
time this stuff starts taking effect, by the time the Senate's elected and 2031 hits, and then somebody's sitting there going, "Oh, we're not going to be able to afford Social Security, next year," it's too late, because one of two things is going to happen: either A, they're going to come up with some terrible solution to stopgap it, or B, it's just going to stay broken. So we got to get ahead now. We got to start paying attention now. You got to start listening to the people that are running for office now. You got to start holding them accountable and going to town halls and asking the questions. Hey, what are you going to do to fix this? Well, we got to get off of this partisan politics bullshit too. Of, hey, I've been a Democrat my whole life, or I've been a Republican my whole life, so I'm going to vote for this guy because I've got to. No, if you're senator who's been in the Senate for 30 years and can barely remember their name says, I'm going to keep the status quo, but this new young upstart goes, hey, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, maybe you need to fucking swallow your pride and vote for the other guy,
Yeah.
on both sides.
Let's listen to somebody who's coming up with new creative ideas. That's what at the point we're at. I mean, do we hey, well, maybe it's not new, maybe it's, hey, we need to cut spending but increase taxes, or we need to leverage new, assets. Maybe we do buy 50% of all AI companies, and those profits from dividends we receive, we start pumping into Social Security or Medicare or something different.
Yeah, I think we need to. I don't know. We need a change. We need to. The problem is, I think we're just going to do it too late, and I think we're going to fall into the partisan politics system even more. Because think about it too. When that happens, 2032, that's going to be a presidential election year. 2028, your next one's going to be 2032. So this is going to be a can that gets kicked down to then, and then it's going to be, elect me, I'll fix everything. And it's going to be, oh, well, we can't fix this problem now in 2030 because we can use it, or we can't fix it in 2029 because we can use it in the 2030 midterms. And then it's going to be, well, now we can't fix it in 2031 because we got to use it for the president. As a populace, we need to stop falling for this shtick at two, because that's the thing.
Every 4 years,
every 2 years. Because look at so we referenced earlier, Mike Johnson talking about we got to do something about Medicare and these entitlement programs and stuff. I kind of we kind of discussed it a little bit before I started recording, but I pointed out, I said, it's convenient, if you follow that quote, he says, oh, we're going to look into that next year. Oh, very convenient, you're going to look into it next year. Well, what's this year? It's an election year. It's the midterms. So now you're going to have all these people running on, hey, elect me so I can fix this. And then what's going to happen? Either A, the Democrats are going to retake one or both chambers of Congress, and they're going to be too focused on, we need to impeach Trump. Yeah, so they're not going to fix it. Or Republicans are going to get it, in which case they're going to go, hey, we're not going to do anything because now we need to run on this in 2028. They're going to go, hey, we need this for the presidential election. And you're going to have J.D. Vance coming out, or Marco Rubio, or whoever, probably Marco Rubio, but they're going to come out and be like, hey, you need to elect me so I can fix these entitlement programs, and you need to elect Republicans so we can fix it. And it's the same old cycle we've been dealing with for 30 years. My entire lifetime, we've been dealing with it, where, hey, elect me and I'll fix this, and then they don't do anything, but then they can run on it again the next year.
Yeah, I mean, Republicans, we've already talked about this, they're poised to lose. I mean, what have they done in the past 2 years? Legislatively, what have they done?
Big beautiful bill, that's it.
Big beautiful bill, funding for ICE and
yeah, that recently passed, which was even controversial in and of itself.
Try to fight the release of the Epstein files. We got that through, but
what's been done with it?
What has been done with it? So, Democrats, they might have the pitch, they might get it. What are they going to do, though? Because all of these things that have occurred this year, the Democrats could have got what they wanted 2 years prior when they were in power,
Oh yeah,
a
think
year and a
about
half
it.
ago when they were in power. But what did they do? Nothing.
Yeah, think about it. I mean, look at the Epstein files, for example. They
Yeah.
could have
Where,
released
where
those
were
at
they?
any time during
Any
Biden's
point.
term. Any point they could have released it. Did they? No. And then they ran, as soon as Trump ran on, I'm going to release it, and then he didn't do it. Now you see all these Democrats running on, well, we need to do something about the Epstein files. And, we've seen it on social media and stuff. Well, they didn't do anything with it. We need to elect Democrats and stuff. It's like, okay, we're just recycling the old script. We're
Yep.
tweaking some words here and there, and then we're recycling the old script. But that might be more of a next time's conversation. That's about all I got for
Next
this.
time.
This is more of a rant about the state of our failing capitalist society and my hatred for Elon.
I like it. That was a good one.
It's billionaires in general. It's billionaires in general. Yeah,
I
that's all
think
I got.
next one or the one after Trump's America, right? I think we talked about it every 6 months, just whoever's in power, kind of giving our little perspective of everything that has gone on every 6 months. I think that would be good. That would be a good one.
I think that can tie into like what we kind of just ended on.
Yeah.
On that note, okay, bye.
Please remember to like and subscribe if you like what we're talking about.
Oh, thank you for remembering that. I almost clicked end record. All right, now, okay, bye.
Feed the algorithm.